Manchester United 4, Everton nil. I can't believe it. I saw a United side that was clinical, a threat from set pieces, managed the game towards the end, and a big one, would you believe it, finishes the day with a positive goal difference. A really good day for Manchester United, but how did they actually get the job done? Well, I tell you what, if you quickly subscribe to the channel, please, we're trying to hit 45,000 this year, you could really be the one to help. Once you've done that, we'll get into the video. So for today, a bit like the other day, we are going to focus on Manchester United in possession controlling the ball. And the reason we're going to do that is because United were once again dominant in terms of dominating possession for most of this game. But don't worry, we will do more of a defensive breakdown through this week because there are some concerns there. Anyway, looking at Manchester United on the ball, this wasn't an easy game. Everton were a team that looked to apply pressure, and they're a really physical side. A side capable of squeezing high, imposing themselves on you, and really making it quite difficult to play through. However, Manchester United showed some patterns and some ideas and some principles which were really effective to move the ball through these areas. And the big one that I'm going to talk about is overloading an area to isolate a different area. So what am I talking about here? Well, mainly this was down the left-hand side, and Manchester United would move the ball from Lisandro Martinez to Diogo Dalot. Now, of course, the cue for Everton here is to try and get over and squeeze that side of the pitch. Beto will come over, McNeil as well, Idrissa Gueye. They're all going to try and squeeze over to this side of the pitch to apply pressure. This is what we're talking about. Manchester United will bring lots of players into this position. We're trying to overload this area. You can see this part of the pitch is now massively overloaded. There's lots of players. But what this does mean is that you can then isolate the far side of the pitch. And when you've got a right-footed player like Dalot, you've got a linking player like Xerxes, players like Bruno and Casemiro with a great passing range, you have the ability to get the ball to the far side of the pitch, to that isolated player, from where you can then attack. And we know that Ahmad is a brilliant player carrying the ball in these situations. We can see it here for United. Lisandro Martinez plays the ball down the line to Diogo Dalot. And of course, Everton react. They don't want to let Dalot have time on the ball, so they have to get the team over to try and apply pressure. This is what most teams in the Premier League do. But Manchester United actually have the ability to really take advantage of this. And this is where, in moments, United feel like a side that technically are really good. There's just an inconsistency. Dalot plays the ball in here to Xerxes. It's brilliant false nine play from Xerxes. It turned out to be a brilliant decision to get him into the team. Played really well. Excellent hold-up play here. He releases the ball to Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo works it one wider to Ahmad. Now if you think just 3 seconds ago we were deep on our left-hand side, now suddenly, after just a few passes, we are wide in a really good position on the right. Overload one side to isolate the other side. We've got another example of this again here. Again, Diogo Dalot has the ball. Everton are crowding over to this side of the pitch, trying to put him under pressure, but Dalot using his right foot, and this is the key here, the weak-footed wing-back, his right foot to find a pass over towards the other side of the pitch, where once again we have an isolation. Ahmad has a lot of time on the ball, Marcus Rashford makes the run in behind. This is really good from United in the first phase. We saw this at times, to be fair, under Erik ten Hag, but this is good under Ruben Amorim. Now those situations there were of course moments where United were able to move the ball forward quickly, but you can't always do that. Sometimes teams are a little bit more compact, they get players behind the ball and they reduce the space, and Everton did exactly that. The question here for Manchester United was, can you progress the ball through the lines? You know, can you first of all be controlled and calm and composed, but then do you have a progressive threat? Can you move the ball forward through the lines? Can you find a player in the pocket? For example, we know that Manchester United very often are going to use the 3-2 shape like this, so we're using a back three, and then Casemiro and Kobbie Mainoo in midfield. We also know that we are likely to have a midfield overload, because Xerxes can drop a little bit deeper, Marcus Rashford can come inside, and also Bruno Fernandes. There are situations where we have 4 or 5 players in here against the Everton 3. This is where, for me, United need to be a little bit better. Now, this isn't necessarily a criticism because we expect this under a new manager, but Manchester United currently are finding it a little bit difficult at times to move the ball forward into these central zones, picking it up in midfield, using the overload, finding the spare man, and progressing the play like that. There are moments where it's a bit stodgy almost, we get a little bit stuck. In a situation like this, you can see United are in the 3-2. There are players higher up. We can see the space over here, for example. In this position here, we can see that there is a bit of space to play into. But we just struggle to do this a little bit at the moment. Now, to try and help this, there are situations where we move to more of the 3-1 shape like this, as Kobbie Mainoo pushes higher. But still, there is a bit of a difficulty moving the ball forward. Sometimes we end up sort of just cycling the ball around the back in a bit of a U shape, or a horseshoe shape, I have referred to it in the past. United are a bit stuck here, a bit stodgy. However, when it does work, it looks really dangerous. In a situation like this, Kobbie Mainoo actually manages to get on the ball, he gets on the turn, and he plays it through to Casemiro. And Casemiro then hooks it one further to Bruno Fernandes. Now, Bruno Fernandes is essentially our free player in midfield because of the overload, and then he plays the ball forward to Diogo Dalot. Now, unfortunately, the final delivery is really poor, but you can see how this shape can work. So at the moment, I think you can see what United want to try and do, and I think as we kind of go further into the process, really, of improving as a team, you will see more focus on trying to play through the middle, but at the moment, it's still a little bit tough for us. Now, whilst we may still have some difficulties progressing the ball through the middle, we don't have such problems out wide. Out wide, we look really good. We're finding a lot of space. We're getting the wing-backs, the inside forwards, into great positions and attacking in a really threatening way. But interestingly, the reason we're able to do this is actually because of the narrow, compact players. You see, because initially we are playing with this block of 4, we have the ability to drag the opposition a bit more central, a bit more narrow like this, and this means that therefore the space is out wide. The task now is actually finding those players out wide, because it's not just as easy as those players are being there, we need to find them. We saw earlier when we were looking at the overload in the middle, granted, yes, we had the extra player, but we couldn't always find them, and that was a problem. Out wide we are finding them, and I think a lot of the reason is, in this game, the work of Xerxes and also Marcus Rashford. Xerxes in particular does some really good work where what he does is he drops a little bit deeper into midfield. Now, because he drops into this position, Bruno Fernandes no longer needs to be there, right? So he moves a little bit wider. Now, because he has moved wider, Dalot no longer needs to be in this position, which gives Dalot that license to fly forward. Knowing that if Casemiro wants to play short, he still can. He's got Bruno, he's got Xerxes. But if we want to go longer, now we've suddenly got the threat. And that all happens because Xerxes is willing to drop deeper initially. You can see it in a situation like this. It works really nicely. Xerxes playing up front, basically like a false 9, or a 9.5 as he describes it, moving deeper into this space on the left-hand side. And the effect is, Bruno Fernandes doesn't need to be so central because Xerxes is occupying that space. So Bruno goes, you know what, I want to move a little bit wider as well. And let me just get myself out of the way of this one. Bruno Fernandes moves into this wider position as well. And because Bruno has moved here, Dalot no longer needs to be deep, and now he can go in behind the opposition defence. And like I can see, Lisandro Martinez still has short options. If he wanted to, he could play in here, he could play in here. But on this occasion, he chooses to send the ball long, over the top. And again, the position we get into is absolutely brilliant. The first touch is a little bit poor, the delivery is not great. But again, in terms of getting into a great position, that's brilliant progressive play out wide. We are in a phenomenal place right now. And we could also see it at times on the other side of the pitch, although the dynamic and the way that it worked was a little bit different. You see, what Marcus Rashford would actually often do is try and almost attach himself to Jarrad Branthwaite. So rather than always dropping deep and trying to link the play in these areas, there were moments where he would, like I said, attach himself to Jarrad Branthwaite. Now, what I mean when I use the term attach himself is basically force Branthwaite to mark him. He's almost making himself man-marked. So he may not necessarily be an option himself, but this selfless play is going to make space and an opportunity for someone else. And the way that this works is Marcus Rashford will push higher initially and attach himself to Branthwaite. What he's going to do after is drop a little bit deeper, just 1 or 2 yards. It's a very subtle difference, but it just causes Branthwaite just to follow him a little bit. But because Branthwaite has followed him, whilst the fullback has stayed deeper, you can see that there is now this slight kind of disconnect in the opposition backline. And this is when someone like Amad, the wing-back, can now get in behind into these spaces, or it might be Kobbie Mainoo could attack these spaces, or perhaps if this was Rasmus Højlund in the future, he could attack these spaces. But again, the pattern of movement is really good to try and find these opportunities. And once again, of course, we've got an example of it. Not this one. Let's move on to the next one. You can see Marcus Rashford starts really high. He's an inside forward, but he almost looks like a striker. He has pinned himself right onto the centre-back. And then at a crucial moment, he just has this small movement. You can see him changing direction here. He just drops a couple of yards. It's not a big change, just a couple of yards. But now Branthwaite is higher than those other 2 defensive players. And you can see that top defender has already started to notice his problem, because Mazraoui has time on the ball and there's space in behind the Everton defence now because of Rashford's movement. The ball goes over the top from Mazraoui. It's a brilliant pass. Of course it is. It always is. And Amad races in behind, and once again, we are in a brilliant position. Amad beats Pickford to the ball. The ball eventually comes towards the edge of the penalty area, but we don't quite connect. And that's annoying, it's frustrating. That final part is still lacking a little bit. But in terms of patterns of play, tactical overloads, it's looking really good for United. And then the other thing I want to comment on this game is just Amad. Now, the reason I want to talk about Amad is because we can discuss technical level all we want. We can talk about tactical overloads and things like that. But ultimately, sometimes you just need a player that's going to work hard, who is going to be tenacious, he's going to be athletic, and he's going to win his battles. And we saw that from Amad. Absolutely brilliant pressing work. Almost situations where you could argue he shouldn't be pressing. It's almost not his position to be pressing. But he is just that. He has that much drive to his game, that much tenacity. He just wants to win the ball more than the other Manchester United players. And we saw how effective it was in these situations, winning the ball high to set up huge chances for Manchester United. I just think Ahmad deserves a lot of credit. If you guys want a video on his performance, and not just his performance, but his role as a wing-back in general, let me know in the comments down below, because I think it is quite interesting. He's doing a lot of good work, and he is a massive attacking threat, considering he's actually kind of playing as a wing-back. But just generally speaking, overall, a really good day for Manchester United. 4-0, comfortable result in the end. Was the performance comfortable? I don't think so, to be honest. I don't think we should have won this match 4-0. And that's why I do want to cover the defensive work. I mentioned it after the Bodo Glimt game. A lot of you guys want that video, breaking down defensive tweaks, where we're good, where we're bad. That video is coming, especially now we've seen another example of it as well. So that video will be out tomorrow or the day after. It's coming very soon. But for today, in terms of today's coverage, we are finished there. It's 4-0 for Manchester United, so I want to focus on the positives today. We'll cover the rest another day. But apart from that, we are finished. So thank you guys very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.